In 2009, the ADB adopted the new regional strategy for the Pacific countries, which is called the Pacific Approach 2010-2014. This is a regional assistance strategy for ADB. So now in ADB, many regional departments come up with the regional strategies, but then the characteristics of this document is that this has a dual role. For many of our other regional departments, of course, for many countries, you prepare the CPS, Country Partnership Strategy. But in the context of the Pacific, we thought that we really don't have to give too many prescriptive analytical work at the time of country strategy formulation. So this document serves as the country strategy or country partnership strategy for 10 of our smaller development member countries. Now, there are, as I said, that 14 countries the Pacific Department looks after. So there is a separate CPS for Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, Solomon Island. Okay, right now we cannot really do anything for Fiji, so we don't have any paper for the Fiji. But for other three countries, we have the country-specific CPS, country partnership strategy, which actually incorporates a lot of fragility assessment behind. Solomon Islands, that country was under civil conflict between 1999 to 2003. And now, after that, ADB really couldn't operate until 2009. And in 2009, as ADB was to resume operation in Solomon Island, first we came up with an interim strategy just to cover a short period, 2009-2011, because the situation was still fluid. We really don't know. We were not really ready to come up with the long-term strategy. And only after we finished with this interim strategy, in 2012, we came up with the first solid 5-year country partnership strategy for 2012-2016, which again reflects our understanding of the fragility of that country. So a lot of analytical work on political economic dynamics, the causes of the ethnic conflict, and how these different ethnic groups really play out to really form the political dynamics of the Solomon Islands. All those things are basically the thinking behind in this country partnership strategy for Solomon Islands. The project preparation is far more labor intensive than before. Also, in project administration, I can just give you one example of a water supply project or initiative in Timor-Leste, which is another conflict-affected country. This is a story that, I don't want to name whom, but one bilateral donor was supposed to focus on rural water supply in Timor-Leste. ADB we took up the urban water supply. That bilateral donor who worked on the rural water supply, they did a lot of physical investment, but then, unfortunately, after a year or so, many of the infrastructures they put in just became non-operational, simply because there was no system or capacity to operate. Now, ADB's urban water supply, we are working in the capital city, Dili. The initial project for implementation got delayed substantially because we really tried to spend time in building up the local ownership, local capacity. Of course, in the process, that project team was criticized so much for the delays in the contract award, disbursement. And it was really labor-intensive work. Even just in the second half of last year, we had to field 4 missions just to make sure that this project gets going. And finally, we now see the good ownership of the communities where we have our water supply system, and it seems that we have really succeeded in achieving more sustainable water supply system in certain districts of Delhi.
One thing I'd like to explain to you is Afghanistan Infrastructure Trust Fund, which we are doing from a few years ago. It's a multi-donor trust fund. The history of multi-donor trust fund starts from Afghanistan Reconstruction Trust Fund, which is governed by World Bank, paying the salary of the public servants. We started this Afghanistan Infrastructure Trust Fund for infrastructure projects a few years ago. And the system is that donor would contribute, and all the entire amount in the fund will be used for co-financing of ADB projects. The projects will be approved by ADB board. Implementation is done by ADB rule and ADB team. And this is really efficient. And at the moment, I think we have contributions amounting to $211 million. And the indicative amount for Afghanistan from ADB for 2013 is $261 million. And the Afghanistan Infrastructure Trust Fund is growing.
We prepared the country partnership in 2010, which was exactly the time when the World Bank Development Report was prepared and the drafts were already available. And we knew from that we needed to adopt a specific approach for the conflict-affected communities. And the question was how to incorporate it in the country partnership strategy. So the capacities are much lower at the community. And as the Vice President already said, this can affect the outcomes of the project. And to make matters worse, we can even have a negative impact on the communities if we interfere in a conflict-affected situation without being fully aware what is going on. So in the end, what we decided was included this issue in a paragraph on thematic priorities and quality at entry. So we see it as a quality at entry issue, and we required the project teams to adopt a conflict-sensitive approach in any of the communities which are conflict-affected, which they would want to work in. So there is a footnote in the country partnership strategy. It's footnote 46 if you are interested to read it up. So at that time when we wrote it, we didn't expect much work to come up in this region. But then, of course, as you are all aware, in 2012 the government signed the framework agreement on Bangsamoro. And since then we had quite a number of requests already from the government asking us whether we would be willing to invest more in this area.